announcement for his presidential campaign tonight, but not on a stalwart or conservative media like Fox News. Instead, the Republican did so on Twitter in a conversation with Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk. The live stream, however, was plagued by glitches for over 30 minutes. And by the time DeSantis made the announcement, hundreds of thousands of viewers had signed off. But DeSantis wasted no time during his announcement attacking the NAACP and Black Floridians, essentially saying that they had positions under the former Florida governor because of affirmative action. Well, the South Carolina Senate passed a ban on abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy last night after a filibuster led by 5 women senators, including 3 Republicans. However, those women failed to block the passage of the bill. The legislation did expose divisions among Republicans over how far to go in restricting abortion, a struggle that has played out in other legislatures in the year since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, returning the regulation of abortion to the states. A push to inject religion into public schools across Texas faltered last night after the State House failed to pass a contentious bill that would have required the 10 Commandments to be displayed prominently in every classroom, including the classrooms of public schools. Well, lawyers for former President Donald Trump sent a letter yesterday requesting a meeting with Attorney General Merrick Garland related to the special counsel investigation into Trump's conduct and the removal of confidential documents from the White House. The letter rambled on about Hunter Biden, but essentially said that Trump was being treated unfairly by the special counsel. It's been a year since a massacre at a school in Uvalde, Texas, where 2 teachers and 19 children were killed when a gunman opened fire at Robb Elementary School. And efforts to change Texas' lax gun laws have stalled. And in Washington, Congress has shown very little support for new laws to address gun violence. Well, the GOP unites in brinkmanship over the default on America's debt, rejecting Joe Biden's compromises. Several House Republican lawmakers have begun casting doubt on the Treasury Department's deadline for averting a financial crisis. And since her recent return to the U.S. Senate, Senator Dianne Feinstein from California and her staff have used every trick in the book, according to some reporters, to stay out of sight and at a great distance from the press. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. I am joined today by 2 brilliant contributors. Dr. Calvin John Smiley, he is the author of Purgatory, Citizenship, Reentry, Race, and Abolition. And Jamar Brown, he's the former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party, and he is a Democratic strategist. And in hour 2, we are talking about the recent warning about social media and its negative impact on teens, particularly causing teens, according to the Surgeon General, the U.S. Surgeon General, social media causes teens to experience high levels of anxiety and depression. Some folks are pushing back on that warning and saying that social media is a lifeline for some teens, including those that are part of the LGBTQ community. We're going to talk to a teenager, a therapist, and a tech expert to get to the bottom of what's really driving these numbers, these high numbers of anxiety and depression amongst teens, and what role, if any, social media may have. But before I bring on my guests, here is what I'm thinking about in real time. You probably have heard the news that Tina Turner, a magnetic singer of explosive power, is dead today at age 83. Tina Turner was hailed in the 1960s for her dynamic performances in her husband and wife duo. She became a sensation as a recording artist, often echoing her personal struggles in her songs. Her songs, in fact, traced her story from her unhappy partnership with her husband Ike to her 1980s comeback, courtesy of a British pop group. And I thought it would be good during this hour, as I pay tribute to Tina Turner, who actually hails from East St. Louis, to talk about some of her 10 biggest hits as I read off these songs. See if you remember them and think about what song is your favorite. She had a lot of hits, but these are the top 10 for me, starting with River Deep, Mountain High, a big hit in 1966, Proud Mary, 1971, Nut Bush, City Limits in 1973, Let's Stay Together in 1983, one of my favorites, What's Love Got to Do with It in 1984, Private Dancer, also in 1984, We Don't Need Another Hero, big hit in 1985, The Best in 1989, Steamy Windows, also in 1989, and the Bond music or the soundtrack for a Bond movie, Golden Eye, in 1995. Tina Turner definitely left a huge imprint on the music industry, on Black culture, Black music, and she will be missed. Her legacy, though, will live on forever. Rest in power, singer, performer, mother, Tina Turner. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation in scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
All right, welcome, Dr. Calvin John Smiley and Jamar Brown. My Twitter feed is just lit up with tweets about the literally incompetent launch of DeSantis's announcement that he's running for president. What we know is that the Twitter Spaces launched by Ron DeSantis with Elon Musk, according to everyone that tuned into it, they say it was an absolute disaster. Apparently, the Space's function kept glitching out, and when they finally were able to get the functionality to work, there was a massive echo and feedback before the entire session went silent again. Folks online are calling it the most incompetent and humiliating presidential launches in history. All right, Dr. Smiley, how can a man with $200 million, well, he doesn't have it in the bank, but there's a super PAC out there with $200 million ready to spend that money on him, and he's got a pretty big war chest himself. How can he, how does he launch his presidential campaign and have it bomb like this?
Yeah, I didn't get to see it live, but I did see some of the ads afterwards, and yeah, it was really on brand for him that it would be such a debacle. Most of the ad that I saw was really just harking back to the late '80s, early '90s fear mongering, buzzwords using terms like crime is festering and all the kind of gimmicks that we hear with the ominous music. But it also is part of who he is. Frankly, he doesn't inspire charisma. He doesn't have that same kind of cachet or prominence. That,
wait a minute, Dr. Smiley, charisma and competency, two different things. You can be like the boringest person on the planet and still be competent enough to hire the right people to pull off a successful launch.
That's true, but he didn't do either one of those things. So my statement still holds, right? And I think what's really interesting is just how he is kind of in the same camp as Trump, but also different, right? Whereas Trump was all of the bravado and braggadocio. That's not this guy. He's more reserved. And to his credit, and I don't mean that in a positive way, he's been able to bulldoze so many of these policies into legislation in Florida. So people do like him, and it will be very scary as well as interesting to watch how that unfolds at the national level.
Well, apparently, Jamar, the base of the Republican Party doesn't like him very much because his poll numbers are like under 5%. And I got to give it up for President Joe Biden. His Twitter game is on point. So he tweets, "This link works," and sends you a link to the Biden-Harris administration website. So, he's just needling. Trump has called him Ron DeSanctimonious. So, the Trump's team is out there really dragging him. And then Joe Biden, in a very classy, very simple tweet, just says, "Hey, y'all, you want the real deal? Here's the real deal." So, Jamar, not only is it incompetent, the link doesn't work, there's echo, there's dead space, and apparently Elon Musk spent more time when he did talk bragging about himself, patting himself on the back, than talking about the candidate that was announcing. But why does he launch with this attack on the NAACP and Black Floridians? Is this going to be the way he out-Trumps Trump? In his mind, is by being the most racist white man in the race?
Well, I think you saw the Joe Biden thing because in his tweet, because he was confident enough to hire the right people, right? And they were able to respond very quickly. But to the point you made about the NAACP, I mean, the Republicans all fight to be who the most racist person could be in the party. Their policies have been driven by race. They drive their electorate to the polls using race and race baiting. You see what DeSantis has done, right? We're eliminating DEI programs, eliminating history out of school books and out of libraries, right? And those are just some of the things that he's done. And so I think that, unfortunately, we're going to see more of this, and they're going to try to do it on the backs of the Black electorate while still trying to say that they can help Black people, which we know that for Ron DeSantis, that is actually not true. So I think we're going to see more of it because they've got to out-racist each other, for lack of better words, in this primary to see who comes out on top.
Yeah, so we know, Dr. Smiley, Trump tried to play both sides against the middle, right? So he had Blacks for Trump. He had Diamond and Silk. At one point, he had Omarosa. He had his exceptional Negroes, let's call them, that he would trot out and supported him. I guess at one point it was Ice Cube. I mean, it was a whole list of folks. You can't win a general election, be president in this country without the Black vote. Some percentage of it. You got to get, the percentage that Biden or Obama got, but you've got to get some percentage of the Black vote to win. And Trump clearly did when he won. When does DeSantis try to pivot? Because at some point, the Florida, way of hating blacks, maligning gay people, that's just not going to play across the country. You're going to have to come into some other states. So when does he start to pivot? And when are we going to see his exceptional Negroes that he's going to have on his case? He's got to have some, right? I mean, all white races have their exceptional Negroes. So when do his show up?
Definitely. I was just going to say, being conservative and black pays. If we look at, Candace Owens and even, Silk and Diamond, if you look at their histories, they didn't start out as these conservative mouthpieces for white supremacy. But, once they started to see the followers and platform grow, it became
they got a show. Remember, they were on Fox streaming. They were like little celebrities.
It became their bread and butter. So I'm sure that DeSantis either has some in the pocket already, or he's probably trying to have his people go out and find them. But one thing that I find really interesting with DeSantis and his whole approach, even with the maligning of black folks and gay folks and immigrants and things like that, is he always tries to talk about it in an interesting way, where it's like, you can be black, you can be gay, you can be an immigrant, but just be it the right way, or don't talk about it. And so he can always, feign that he's not a racist, because it's like, you can be black in Florida, you just can't talk about what actually makes someone black in Florida, or what makes someone black in this country. And so he'll use that as his kind of echo chamber to play defense that he's not racist. And they all do it, right? In this kind of 21st century colorblind racism, where people say racist things, their knee-jerk reaction is always, I don't have a racist bone in my body. And to that I always say, yeah, because bones can't be racist. Ideologies and thoughts are. So we'll see what he does.
Well, we know he has an African-American that was his Surgeon General. I don't know if he's still with him, but he was a guy that had essentially been kicked out of UCLA. He was an MD, espousing some weird theories about COVID vaccines. And then he ends up being the Surgeon General for Florida. He's an African-American doctor. I haven't seen him lately, so I don't know if he's still on the same team. We haven't seen his team roll out. But what do you make, Jamar, of this $200 million super PAC that has assembled and has a career Republican strategist, someone who does what you do, but on the opposite side, who's running it, who says they are going to knock on the doors, not once, not twice, but like 4 times in these early voting states like New Hampshire, and that they're going to have the most expansive ground game that any party has ever seen, like 2,900 or so, door knockers out, introducing DeSantis to Republican voters, not attacking Trump, but they say going after the 3 issues that they think the base care about, which is schools, the issue of schools obviously being one of them, and this whole culture war is what they're going to really put their emphasis on. What do you think of that? You're a strategist. Is that a good strategy?
Well, I think it depends on who he talks to, right? And what that targeting looks like, if they're doing any of that particular targeting. Look, presidential campaigns cost hundreds of millions of dollars now. I mean, Joe Biden spent over $1 billion in 2020, right? And there's some additional things like, there's the digital stuff, and there's some virtual things that had to happen because, obviously we were in the middle of a global pandemic at that time. And so presidential campaigns have gotten way more expensive. And so they probably believe that they have to raise that kind of money to make him competitive, but to also get his name out there. And that's what he's been trying to do. Now, I think the things that you have to look at is, one, who are these donors, right? And what are the interests of those donors? And how does DeSantis talk about the issues in keeping the interests of those folks that have given toward that $200 million? And then 2, to your point, that we have to see who he's talking to, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to be the different person from Trump in order to get out of the primary, right? Where you have a Nikki Haley, you have a Tim Scott, right? And other folks that might decide to run. And so he's got to be able to stand out, and he feels he needs to spend this money. But what cost does that come? And I think we're going to see that the more he messages and the more he talks about issues. And then what do his supporters start saying? That's the expense that we're going to see.
But do you think, Dr. Smiley, that anybody can get past Donald Trump in a Republican primary without attacking Donald Trump. They all are tiptoeing around him. They all are so afraid to talk about him. Even Tim Scott, I mean, that was the most bizarre presidential announcement ever. I mean, he looked like a black preacher that was, just wilding out. I don't know what he was doing.
On his first day.
His mama and the mama's best friend. It was just insane. But I don't know if that works. I've been a part of a lot of campaigns, and somebody at some point has to go negative, whether it's the candidate, him or herself, or that super PAC. But you cannot win in our political structure by thinking you're just going to talk about the issues and stay positive while your opponent is tearing you down. You got to use that Oppo research at some point. So when does DeSantis have to confront Donald Trump? Because Trump said, I'm not even debating these clowns. They're not even worthy of being on the stage with me. So he ain't going to give him a chance to talk to him in person. But does this strategy work for DeSantis or any of these people, Haley or Tim Scott?
Yeah, I think they're all kind of biding their time to see when it will be the right moment to attack, right? And it's like one of those things where it's like, who's going to jump first? And you're looking around. And, what I'm thinking is, whoever steps out first, whether that's Scott, Haley, or DeSantis, we'll probably see them all cascade afterwards. I'm sure that they all have things, primed and ready to go. But, there is this kind of idea that, Trump became the Republican Party. And as much as folks might want to be moving away from that, I think there is still a bit of a hesitation because of how, if we go back to 2015, Trump looked like the kind of outside candidate that had no chance, right? He dethroned, Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush. And so, and then, again, to Trump's credit, he is the biggest troll out there. So, folks could probably want to make sure that they're solidly in a good place before they can go after him, because, if he gets his dogs on you, it could spell trouble. So I don't know who's going to do it first, but it'll be interesting when it comes out.
So you are a strategist, Jamar. This is what you get paid to do, is to advise candidates on how to run campaigns. Is this a smart strategy to start with this? I'm not going to attack my fellow Republicans. I don't know, maybe he's going to attack Nikki Haley and Tim Scott, but not attack Donald Trump. Does that work?
Well, I think it depends on the dynamics of the race. And what I'll add to what Dr. Smiley was saying is that, Donald Trump has a loyal base, right? And so if you attack Donald Trump, you're not just attacking Donald Trump. His supporters are very loyal, and his supporters do show up and vote, and they will vote against you. And so you have to be the one that rides the middle somewhat in this case to differentiate yourself from Trump.
Wait a minute, Jamar, you got to peel some of those voters off to win that primary.
That's right. And
you got to convince some of Trump's voters that he's not their guy. So we hear that DeSantis is all in closed doors, talking about him on phone calls. But that ain't going to get you those voters. Talking to the mega donor saying he's not the right guy doesn't translate to the guy on the street that has to go into that voting box. You got to give him a reason not to vote for Donald Trump.
Absolutely. And I think the thing about campaigns, and I tell candidates this all the time, is it's about timing, right? And you've got to be able to go out there and talk to the electorate. You've got to be able to start feeling out the electorate. And so, I think that they'll figure out when that time comes. I don't see a world where, especially someone like a Ron DeSantis, who can be a firebrand himself when he wants to be, doesn't attack Donald Trump, doesn't try to differentiate himself from Donald Trump, and even try to get some of the Trump supporters to see, you can't go another way and still get the same result. And so that's the road that he's got to run. I do think that you'll see those attacks. It's early still in the Republican primary. We still have several months. And I think over the conversations that DeSantis and even some of the other candidates will have, they will get to a point where they have to start saying, I still believe in the same issues, but I'm not Donald Trump. And who does it first, who does it effectively, who does it on time is going to matter when it gets closer to folks going out to caucuses and primaries next year.
I think they got to go way, further than saying I'm not Donald Trump. The man is likely to be indicted by the feds. The man is likely to be indicted by the Georgia district attorney. He's already got a $5 million judgment against him, and that plaintiff, E. Jean Carroll, is still in another lawsuit against him, so we can see another big judgment against him. So you've got an opponent that has potentially, 2 or 3, he's got a trial date in March right dead smack in the election in Manhattan, a criminal trial. So you got an opponent that's in trial, possibly indicted in 2 other jurisdictions, and you aren't going to be running ads with him in an orange jumpsuit and cufflink. I don't see how you do that and expect to win. And remember, the reason Trump's base loves Trump so much is because he is a bulldog. He is a bully. He just, he takes on everyone. So anybody that I can see that's dedicated to Trump wants to see that Trump-like, attribute in whomever they're going to vote for that's going to be their replacement for Trump. Because otherwise you're going to get branded as weak, as soft. And the way Trump attacks these other candidates is going to be what people think of them. So if you can't stand up to Trump and not sugarcoat it and say, I'm not him, that's not attacking somebody. To say, I'm not them, that's could be a compliment. I don't know, it's definitely not an attack. But politics are too nasty in this country, particularly, presidential politics. I'm not a strategist, so I'm going to defer to you, Jamar. It ain't my first rodeo either, and I just don't see that being an strategy. When we come forward, talk about what's happening in South Carolina around abortion and Donald Trump's efforts to talk with the special counsel. Is he trying to throw himself on the mercy of the Department of Justice seeking some kind of leniency and the Uvalde, Texas school shooting? What is and is not happening with the Texas legislature? Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The 3 people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my. House shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in.
I'm back, and in this hour, I am joined by Dr. Calvin John Smiley. He's author of Purgatory Citizenship, Reentry, Race, and Abolition. And also joining me in this hour is Jamar Brown. He's the former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party and a Democratic strategist. So, gentlemen, as you both know, less than a month after 19 children and 2 teachers died in the elementary school shooting last year in Uvalde, Texas, the U.S. Senate did something shocking, passed the most significant gun control bill since the long expired federal ban on assault weapons. But that very same day, that was June 23rd, the Supreme Court upended gun policy in jurisdictions with some of the country's strictest gun laws, like New York, D.C., and California, saying for the first time that everybody basically has the right to carry guns outside their homes. And I've just been watching some of these families in Uvalde mark the anniversary of their children's death, and just looking at the Texas legislature fight about posting the 10 Commandments in schools rather than moving on any kind of gun control legislation in Texas. And just asking myself, how these people, Jamar, get elected? Because they seem to be so out of touch with what the communities they represent have sent them to these public offices to do?
Well, and I think the thing that's particularly important about Texas that I want to name is, the Speaker of the House even created a select committee during this session on gun safety and community safety, which that committee was supposed to be tasked to review and debate legislation that potentially would help curb gun violence and access to people who do not need guns as well. And to see that still nothing is moving, nothing is happening, when we were made to believe that something could happen by creating this committee, and it almost seems like it's a gimmick. So I think that's important to name. There are a couple of different reasons why, there are folks in Texas that are still elected. I think there's still voter education that needs to be done. I think some of those districts are drawn a certain way to keep certain people elected. They really have not been accountable to anything as well. And so part of the Democratic strategy is to make sure that there are candidates running in all the legislative districts that will give voters a real choice in an election. And several of them, especially the ones that are leading the way, that are fighting gun reform, is these folks are in districts that may have not have been challenged before. And so I think that a number of factors as to why those folks are there. But what we see right now in the Texas legislature, where they attacked LGBTQ folks, where they are now attacking Harris County, which is heavily Black and brown in terms of the voting and who administers the voting, that happens. And so the Republicans, if they really wanted to move forward on some gun control and gun reform legislation, they could have. They have the governor's seat, they have the lieutenant governor's seat, they have the state senate, they have the state house. And now I think when someone shows you who they are, we have to believe them, and we believe them now. Now it's up to us to go around the state, organize, recruit candidates to run, but then also make sure that voters know who those candidates are and where they believe on the issues, and have a clear comparison so that people can really make a choice.
So, Jamar, the Republicans, as you say, control pretty much every branch of government in Texas. They are fighting with each other now. So let's get this right. Your attorney general is indicted, right? He's been indicted for some kind of
securities fraud.
He now has called for your Speaker of the House to resign, saying that he was drunk while overseeing 12 hours of a hearing. So there's now all this infighting within the Republican Party itself. How is that impacting this legislature, this Texas legislature, in terms of addressing some of these issues that seem to be top of the mind for families, particularly these families in Uvalde who are still mourning the brutal deaths of their children?
Yeah, absolutely. It does impact it. It impacts government, right? These are folks that are supposed to be elected to have some compassion for voters and people in communities, that they're supposed to run the government, and yet they're fighting back and forth about other things that sometimes are not as germane to the voters as it is to their base, or as it is to themselves, quite frankly. And I think some of that is what we're seeing. And, when you see some, like the attorney general, going after the speaker, or the speaker and the lieutenant governor not getting along, and their bills needing to go through both chambers, you're seeing them right now amend each other's bills to make them worse or to weaken bills because they have their own infighting. And what happens is all power gets corrupted, and they've been in power for so long. They're now corrupting each other and corrupting legislation and corrupting the issues. But at the end of the day, the people who suffer most are Texans, folks that were in Uvalde, folks that are in other El Paso, right? And just Allen, Texas, just the recent shooting there. Those are the people that ultimately suffer at the end of the day because of the infighting inside the legislature.
And Dr. Stein, some of the things these state legislatures, these Republican state legislatures are doing, contrary to the Constitution, contrary to decades-old, century-old, democratic principles like the separation of church and state. So that bill to post the 10 Commandments in every classroom in Texas, that it faltered, but it's representative of thousands of bills across this country by Republican legislatures to do away with this division of church and state, and in their minds, bring the country back to its founding principles of God and teaching. I think I saw a bill where they want to give kids and teachers a certain amount of time during the school day to pray, to read the Bible. I mean, where do these states just want to, separate from the nation and become their own mini republics because they don't want to follow the Constitution of the United States. They want to rewrite it, and they don't have the majority of the voters. But as Jamar said, they have gerrymandered the districts. They've done things to allow themselves to be in power, but they're not acting in ways that are consistent with what the people in these states want.
Yeah, I'm happy that it failed. That's my point blank, answer to that. But, we can sit here and we can talk a lot about the founding fathers and pick them apart and criticize them on a lot of issues. But one thing that I think they got right was that separation of church and state. And that's important. And what we are seeing is, I don't know if it's something new or it's just because of the proliferation of social media and where the Republican and conservative kind of viewpoints are going as a kind of sound or mouthpiece. But, when we think back to the Puritans and the Pilgrims, one thing that we're taught in school is, the Pilgrims came here for religious freedom. And then as you get older, you kind of realize like they weren't the really religious tolerant people that they were kind of made to be seen in that Thanksgiving depiction. They were really the religious zealots and the ones who were intolerant of other folks' views. And so I think that has always kind of undergirded a bit of America and American values. And then I think what also compounds it is it goes hand in hand with this conservative conspiracy theory of like replacement theory or whatever the heck they call it, where they think that, brown, black, Arab, Muslim people are going to replace them. And so we see this kind of squeeze that they need to get these kind of Christian values out there. And what we really are seeing just is neo-Christian fascism. And we've even heard some of those folks even use that terminology when questioned, and they're very proud of it. So this failure of a vote is a small victory, but it's certainly only a battle and not the war that is won, because I'm sure there's going to be plenty of more fights in the years to come about this.
Yeah, real quickly, Jamar, help me understand what Texas, they said your legislature wouldn't be back in session until 2025. What's up with that?
Yes. Yeah, in Texas, our legislature meets every other year. So they meet in odd number years. And so granted that the governor does not call a special session after this session wraps next week, they meet every other year anyway. So they do 6 months every 2 years. So that's how they won't meet again. But likely they'll have a special session because just what you asked me previously, that there's been so much infighting that there's several bills that the governor wanted, like a school voucher program and some other things that he wanted that is not happening or doesn't seem that it's going to happen, in the last 4 or 5 days of the session. So he may very well call a special. But yeah, there'll be 2 years.
How can a state the size of Texas have a legislature that meets every odd year for 6 months? That's just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
it
is. Wow, that's deep. Okay, when we come back, Donald Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan will begin in March 2024, halfway through the presidential primaries. What impact, if any, will that have on the Republican primaries and on the general election, assuming he wins the Republican primaries despite that criminal trial, when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gifted and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Weekdays, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows.
I want to talk about the former president who will be in a criminal trial in March of 2024. The historic nature of that, the fact that we have never seen a former U.S. president sit for trial for anything, and it's going to be in less than 12 months, both a civil and now a criminal trial. But first, I want to ask you, Dr. Smiley, about Senator Dianne Feinstein. She's a beloved senator, senior citizen from California, has obviously been very, very ill, made it back to D.C., though, to try to continue in her office. And now there are these reports out that she's being wheeled around the Senate building in a wheelchair, and that her team, including her daughter who's at her side, is running from the press, and that they have some photos of her team kind of ducking behind walls, etc. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I don't know how to make a comment without it or a sound piece being misconstrued as ageist. But, you know, the reality is that she's an elder, and she's served the state of California. She served her nation for a long time now. And so the question begs, you know, like, why are you holding on to it? What's the holdout? I mean, you know, sometimes we say, you know, someone's got a long game. I don't think she's playing the long game anymore, you know, in terms of her age and things like that. So, you know, I got to ask, like, what is there to prove, you know, and, you know, part of democracy, when we read, you know, the theory of democracy is that you are supposed to pass the torch. You know, you are supposed to bring those who are coming up behind you and train them and put them in position to take the reins. If you never give up the reins, that can cause a whole lot of problems for her seat, for the state of California. And, you know, and frankly, you know, it's a blue state. I mean, it's not like she's in a swing state where this is going to, you know, go. I mean, I guess there's always a possibility, but I don't see that happening, at least right now. So it would be great to see her, you know, step down.
Yeah, you're right. It's very delicate, because if you say something the wrong way, you get accused of being ageist, you get accused of being sexist. Someone mentioned to me when I brought it up, Ted Kennedy, reminded me that he stayed in the Senate after, very serious and long illness, and that he wasn't functioning. And Nancy Pelosi makes reference to Kennedy and saying that no one pressured him. I do worry about her legacy, though, Jamar. This woman has a storied career in government, and to see her being wheeled around in a wheelchair, to see people literally seemingly having to function for her. There's an article in the LA Times about why she won't quit. And basically the conclusion is she won't quit because she never quits. Is that she's not a quitter. That, from third grade or 3 years old, she's never quit anything. And that just doesn't seem like a good enough reason in this situation. And, you think back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? Who stayed in that seat as the U.S. Supreme Court too long. So there is some concept, whether you're a man or woman. And when I was telling this to someone and they mentioned Kennedy, I'm like, look, I don't have to flash my feminist card. You know where I stand on issues of women. So I'm never going to make a comment that is suggesting that we should treat women differently or treat men better than women. So I don't have to prove that. But, woman, man, black, white, red, green, at some point, if you are harming the party and your legacy, I think it's okay to quit. You're not quitting. I mean, this isn't quitting.
Right.
Right. You're passing the torch, like you said. Passing
the torch.
Retirement.
People retire and live a good life. Yeah.
You're building the next generation of leaders. I mean, there's so many ways we can reframe this. We can, talk about this in a positive way. And we don't have to spin it. We don't have to make it up. It is positive. So I just hope that I'm glad her daughter's with her, because I was worried. Are these just staffers who are trying to hold on to their own jobs? Because we know these offices have huge staff and those people like that power that they have. And, maybe some staffer likes being, the surrogate senator while the senator is not functioning, but her daughter's with her. So I'm glad about that. So, but we're just going to pray that situation ends in a positive way. But Jamar, what about your president, your ex-president? He's been a trial. Now, again, I can't imagine we're not going to see a bunch of ads about him. And unlike that civil trial where he did not have to attend, he's going to have to be there. Now, whether the court is, kind to him and let him appear like he did the other day on videotape, he sat there looking agitated and was irritated that the court set the trial for March in the middle of the primary. And the court basically, there's a gag order that's been imposed by this court about what he can talk about and what he can't. That's going to be the spectacle of all spectacles.
Yeah, well, I think that yes, it's going to be that. But two, I mean, with all due respect, the court's calendar doesn't have to align with the electoral calendar, right?
No, it doesn't.
So, if these are things that he is accused of and being investigated for, the process has to play out and the calendar has to play out as it will. But, at the end of the day, since Donald Trump came down the escalator in 2015 and said, I'm running for president, it's been allegation after allegation, right? Investigation after investigation. So, we're talking about, over 5, 6, 7 years of this, right? And so at some point, it also is, part of the process that we got to come to some conclusions about some of this, also as well. And if he's unfit to serve, he's unfit to serve. And, politically, I'm sure folks think that he's unfit, and we'll see how the legal process, also plays out. But I think it's fine, because the legal calendar doesn't have to align with the primary calendar, then.
You're right. I'm not suggesting that the court did anything wrong. The court did its job.
Sure.
I'm just talking about the largeness of this, the implications of having a former, even if he wasn't running for office. I mean, set that aside. Even
he's a former president.
If he was just at home playing golf, he is a former president. All of if the dude gets convicted, he can't just go to jail. He's got he has information in his head. He gets lifetime Secret Service protection. So there are so many implications and wrinkles and complications that we, Secret Service have to be outside his cell with him all day? Who serves his time with him? So
this is unprecedented. So we don't know.
I'm sure he would be very happy with the Aryan Brotherhood or some other white supremacist group becoming his Secret Service in prison.
But we can't. See, that's what I'm saying. As much as we loathe the dude, we got to protect them. We protect our president, so we can't just let him go into Gen Pop, right? Where.
I'm sure there'd be some level of protection. Who the protection comes from, we don't know.
Selling our secrets for cigarettes, Wow, this guy, we could not have imagined somebody this disruptive to everything in this. I mean, this guy is just chaos on steroids. We got to rework everything. We got to build a new jail for him. We got to have a new, even him coming to court. I mean, he had to come to court physically every day. That would be a security nightmare. Everything that we do in this country, none of this is built around presidents, right? This is everyday people. I won't say you, me, and the doctor, because hopefully we won't be at a trial, being charged for crimes. But it's not built around the president that has all of this information. So this is going to be so interesting to watch. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Calvin. John Smiley, again, he's the author of Purgatory Citizenship, Reentry, Race, and Abolition. And my good friend, Jamar Brown, he's former executive director of the Texas Democratic Party and a Democratic strategist. Always a pleasure to have you both on the show. Your insights are brilliant and invaluable.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Absolutely. When we come forward, we are talking about the Surgeon General's warning about social media and its negative impact on the mental health of teens. Some experts and teens are pushing back. For some, they say social media can be beneficial to health and can be a lifeline, particularly for those teens who are in the LGBTQ community. When we come forward, we're going to talk to some experts and some teens and get their take on that Surgeon General's warning and what we should be thinking about social media and the use by our teenagers. That's our next generation. We got to make sure they are safe. We want to protect their mental health as much as we can. Some news and sports are coming up right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism